So tonight, Pottinga is here with us. Ursula is a professional certified coach, a certified neurotransformational coach, and a respected voice at the intersection of neuroscience, consciousness, and transformational coaching. She studied neuroscience at the Mindsight Institute with Dr. Dan Siegel and is known for translating complex brain science into practical human-centered coaching that creates lasting change. Through her business Profound Growth, Ursula supports highly successful leaders in breaking free from internal patterns and that limit their impact, shifting how they show up in leadership, relationships, and culture. She's also a founding partner of BEabove Leadership, where she co-created and co-leads internationally recognized advanced coaching program. Drawing on more than 25 years of international business and professional development experience, Ursula blends classic coaching mastery with neuroscience-based tools to support deep transformational change. She is widely regarded as a masterful coach and exceptional facilitator. Ursula, the floor is all yours.
Well, thank you, Stephanie and Chris, and thank you, Rich and Janet, for being here, and also those that are hopefully going to listen to the recording. As I was getting ready to speak today, I was really reflecting back on my many years of being on this planet and looking at, how did I even get here? And you probably must be wondering that, like, how did she get to be this person? So let me start at the beginning. My first love definitely was the hotel industry. I decided at the age of 10 that this was my calling. This is what I love to be and do. My parents and I used to travel through Europe. I am German, so we spent vacations in Italy and Austria and various places in Germany. And while they didn't have a lot of money, but every now and again we would be invited to go and stay in a hotel with my uncle, who was a dentist and had the financial resources. And I remember clearly the first time I stayed in this very beautiful 18th century boutique hotel, and just the vibe of, candles and the light being dimmed and the hushed voices, the celebrations that were taking place in the meeting rooms, and just the how the whole hotel seemed to work like clockwork. Everybody was working together. The food was arriving just at the right time. It just got me hooked at the age of 10. And then when I graduated from high school, and I had told my parents, that is what I want to do. My mother's first reaction was no. She had a hotel background and knew how hard this would be, how many hours it would require. And she would say to me, "You do not want to do this. This is long hours. It's working at Christmas, working at Easter, working nights, working evenings." And I was not to be deterred. I didn't care. And I think I have a little bit of a stubborn streak. So I basically ignored the advice of my parents and I said, no, this is what I'm going to do. Their financial resources were limited. So going to hotel school, which I really wanted to do, and there is a 3-year hotel school in The Hague that is very well known, has a 3-year hotel management course. They didn't have the money for it. So there was a 1-year school in southern Germany, and my parents said, we can afford the tuition, but everything else is up to you. You need to find a job. And so what did I do? Like many of us, when we start, we go and find a cafe, a restaurant, and we become a server. So that was my first, pull up your sleeves and, do what's needed. So the joy of learning the intricacies of being in a hotel, in a restaurant, the whole wonderful machinery that happens behind the scenes that nobody sees. just fascinated me. So over the next 25 years, I worked in London, in Brussels, eventually met my husband, who is also a hotel person. And then we moved and we moved and we moved again. We spent a couple of years in Toronto. We spent a couple of years in Vancouver. We spent time in London. We spent time then eventually moving to the United States. And in the first sort of 25 years of our marriage, we moved 20 times. And over time, it became it was fun, but there came a point when I looked at life and I thought, I wonder how long I can do this. Every time we moved, I sort of had to reinvent myself. My husband was on a hotel management track and eventually, became a VP running, 100 hotels all over the world. And I thought, I think my career eventually it's either going to change or I have to decide, am I going to be married or going to have a career? Because the two didn't seem to work together anymore because every time he was transferred, it was like, well, now what do I do? This led me to where I am today. There came a point when when we moved to Minneapolis, in the United States, where I sort of took stock of my life and what I was passionate about. And I thought, I'm passionate about the hotel industry, but I need to sort of do something that is portable because I think we're going to keep moving. And by divine intervention, I came across an article in the local paper that talked about coaching. And I looked at that and I thought, well, that's already what I've done in the hotel industry, certainly in the last 7, 8 years, looking at personal and professional development, helping people really figure out, what do I love about what do I do. So I really loved the whole concept of personal and professional development. And I thought, oh, there is a name for it, and it's called coaching. I didn't know that. And you have to remember, this was now 25 years ago. Coaching was at the beginning stages, it was in its infancy. It wasn't as well known as it is today. And when I looked into it, I realized this is what is going to be my second love. And if I can combine love number one and love number two and bring these two together, that's going to be perfect. And so I did the training, got certified, and eventually started my own coaching business. And today, with training, coaching, and working with leaders in the hotel industry, I have sort of blended these two things that I really love and am passionate about, and have combined them. Now, this sounds all wonderful and perfect, but as you can imagine, it came with a whole bunch of challenges. The hotel industry, and I'm not telling you something you don't know, really, really comes with stress and sacrifice. And so while I was walking along this path of this career in the hotel industry in my 20s and 30s, at one point I was my then manager in a big hotel in London sort of picked me out, took me for lunch, and she said, you've been a really great member of the front desk staff, and we really see potential in you, and we think we would love for you to take on a manager role. And when you're in your early 20s, and like ignorance is somewhat bliss. And I'm being a yes person saying, yeah, sure, yeah, that sounds wonderful. I had no idea what I was getting into. Um, I didn't have any managerial skills. I was a very good front desk person. I knew how to make the staff and the guests happy, but to lead a team, I didn't have a clue. And so I basically sort of, I think, just went along and did the best I could as I was sort of going along with it. And what I realized over the past certainly 30 to 40 years, that part of learning, of being a front desk person and then becoming a supervisor and then eventually a front desk manager, there was a big gap. And what I see now is that just because you are a good server or a good hostess or a good receptionist does not mean you can become a good manager or become a good supervisor. There are skills that are very, very different. I didn't have those in those days. And when I look back now, I'm thinking, my goodness, I wish I had known then what I know now. The stress level of taking on this role without any kind of support, being literally thrown into the deep end of the swimming pool, really took a huge toll on my health, both physical and emotional. I suffered from anxiety, panic attacks. And at some point, while we lived in downtown London with the traffic and the noise and the commute, I said to my husband, we need to find something that gives me a little bit more peace. We need to move out of the city. We need to go into the country and find a place that is quieter where I can sort of figure out how to regulate my nervous system. Now, I did not have the words for that then. I have those words now. At the time, it was just like, I need to get out of here. I need to get away from the stress. And so eventually we moved out into the country, into Buckinghamshire, and found a little, 1700, 17th century cottage, renovated that. And, I found a little bit more peace and quiet to not be so overwhelmed by the demands of the job and also where we were living. And so I think that was a really a big learning experience for me, is saying to myself, I said yes, it comes with a whole bunch of challenges, guests complaining, staff not knowing what they should do. And of course, at the end of the day, it would get dumped on my desk. It would get dumped at my front door and saying, there's somebody complaining, they're really mad, you go deal with them, because I can't. And I didn't have the skills. And so the stress of all of that was incredibly impactful. So today, so in the last 25 years, particularly studying what is happening in our brain and what's happening in our body has been hugely impactful. So these days, I talk a lot about how we can manage stress better, because that experience from, all these many years ago was such a huge light bulb going on, that now when I work with, whether these are leaders or people in any industry, but particularly in the hotel industry, is saying you need to manage your stress level, because your brain becomes very ineffective under an overload of stress. We lose empathy, we lose memory, we lose goal direction, and we lose motivation. And these are all very important aspects of working, of leading on a daily basis. That when our brain and our bodies are overloaded with these stress chemicals, we become irritable, we become frustrated, we lose memory, we lose empathy, and we lose motivation. And so, what I love about what I do now is it helps normalize how we feel. I no longer think that just because I can't do this one more thing, that I'm a bad person. I just know that my brain is tilting, beginning to tilt into too much, too much stimulation, too much stress, and I need to recalibrate. And it's not because I'm lazy or unfocused or there's something wrong with me. It simply is because my brain is beginning to lose some of its effectiveness. So that realization was huge because I had internal conversations going on with myself of going like, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with you? Why can't you? Why are you not doing this one extra thing? And I think being, German and coming from a German culture where, do more, do, put your nose on the grindstone, keep going is so prevalent. It was such a relief for me to see from a science perspective, it is not what works. So those experiences have really, really helped me. The other thing that I'm really grateful for in terms of my background in the hotel industry is that because of the constant moving and the constant having to adapt to new cultures, new people, new homes, finding new friends, finding a new infrastructure, I have become very open to change. I don't resist it because I have been trained to just accept it and make the most of it. And I think that is an advantage that many of us have, that have the background. Because I see it in this industry. Many of us have lived in other countries. Many of us have moved multiple times, had to deal with other cultures that have made us really, really flexible. We have a more open mindset than people that have stayed in the same place for 20, 30, 40 years. And that flexibility of thinking really can serve us well. That ability to look at change and not resist it, but embrace it, I think is a great byproduct of the industry that we are in. So that is something I'm absolutely grateful for in terms of, having lived this kind of life. Now, that's an upside, but the downside of it has been loneliness. Every time we move to a new city, it's taken time to make new friends. It's not been easy. And that isolation and loneliness has made me be really aware of what is the community that's out there that I can connect myself to. Who are my people? Where are my people? So I shared with you earlier on that Wednesdays is one of my favorite days because I get to play tennis in the morning. That's part of my community. Those are my people. They love the sport that I enjoy. And over time, we've, created a social connections. We celebrate our birthdays together. But that has only been possible because I have been willing to put myself out there and connect with people and just say, here I am. My name is Ursula. I want to join you, and be open to the discomfort of being out there and not being known and having to introduce myself and, step into a group where I don't know people. And that has been really uncomfortable because I'm really much more of an introvert rather than an extrovert. I'm an introvert, and I would call myself an introvert with an extrovert switch. I can switch it on, but my natural tendency is being more in a quiet, solitary environment. So putting myself out there where I don't know anybody is really, really hard. Very, very uncomfortable. But the industry has taught me that, take a deep breath and show up the best you can, and good things, will happen. So that's, part of my story. Again, learning from everything that the hotel industry taught me is still something that I use for my clients, for myself, for my kids, for my grandkids. That's still something that I use literally every single day.
Thank you so much, Ursula. That's a wonderful story, very
Mm.
compelling. So we're going to stop recording and we'll open the floor to questions.